Running Sentences presents Miles to Go, Part 5, Money. Things have gotten tense for Hiram as he deals with people, money, and trying to survive the next town. It would be much easier if people would just leave him alone to do what he had to do, but he also has to deal with people. This story is written and narrated by Michael Hiram. It is a work of fiction, so any names, characters, businesses, events, and situations within the story are products from the author's imagination. Any resemblance to real people, situations, characters, businesses, events, and/or fictional businesses, characters, events, and so on and so forth is purely coincidental. Copyright 2026, Michael Hiram. All rights reserved. With his back against the door to his hotel room, trying to keep it from falling in on him, there was, of course, nowhere to go, and no escape from this hotel room. And this man who said his name was Barco had sawed the door hinges to get at him. Why? No idea came to his mind, but again, a time for thoughts as an idea came to him. He'd been standing fully upright, legs in front of him, to provide some leverage to push back. But what if... Mr. Hiram, let us in so we can finish this business quickly. I don't want to, Hiram said to Mr. Barco. We know you have money, and it will soon be ours. Just hand it over. He chose not to respond as he tried to figure out the physics of his plan. In theory, it could work, if he didn't get squashed and squished, or found out in the process. There was, though, only one way to find out. In a hurry, he slid down into a ball at the bottom of the door, and hoped it would just slip over him, and then he could roll away. Try your best to get at me. I won't give up easily. Hiram shouted this, as antagonistically as he could possibly muster. Not that he really knew how to do that, but it never hurt to push a few buttons. There was a heavy thwack against the door, which pushed towards toppling over. He tightly rolled into that ball, hoping for the best, as things came crashing down. Ooh! Ow! Ah! Barco growled. Apparently, Barco was hurting himself getting the door down, which made Hiram smile to himself. The weight of the door was on him, but it didn't feel too bad, though Hiram decided not to move yet as the door shifted about, as if there was someone wrestling on it. You can't escape. This is a hotel room with no way out, Barco barked. When that weight shifted off of that door, Hiram decided to roll himself out into the hallway, hoping for the best. The thought of the door landing on the ground was not planned for, and he realized it would give him away. So Hiram sprang to his feet, only to discover the clerk from the check-in desk with a gun pointed towards him. You can't go anywhere, I'm sorry, the clerk stuttered. What are you doing? Hiram asked, confused, as he stared at the pistol. We're getting the money, sir, Barco said from the room. That's it? That's what you want? Hiram said in confusion and shook his head no. Barco came storming out the door, which had been Hiram's hotel room, with an angry look on his face. What did you think this was about? You did say something about people I got money from trying to control things, which is odd since I think they already do, Hiram replied. And yet you fell into my trap. So shut up, Barco ordered. Unable to stop himself, Hiram glanced about, uncertain of the comment from Barco, or the gun in the clerk's hand, which was still pointed towards him, though those hands were doing a lot of nervous shaking, which was a worry. If a person didn't know how to handle a gun, there was a good chance it might go off. Right, a trap, Mr. Barco? Hiram asked. Don't do anything. I don't want to shoot you, but I will do it just to get some money and get out of this town. All I need is some money. Don't make me do stupid things. The blabber from the clerk was quite surprising. Hiram sort of held up his hands, trying to calm the situation down. Money is in my car, he said. Coming charging around so that he was in front of him, Barco snarled. You expect us to believe that? Do or don't check my hotel room for any money. I've got all night to stand around, apparently. What are we gonna do, sir? The clerk asked as Barco went over to him and pulled the gun from their grasp, then waved it towards Hiram. You will go check that room and make sure that it is really clear of any money. I will watch over this one. Sir, I don't really like this, the clerk offered. I have the gun now, and I will use it. Follow my orders, and we will get rich. Disobey, and well, you can figure out what's going to happen, can't you? I just want to get paid, the clerk complained. You will go search my room, sir. Just best to please this man, Hiram said, breaking into the conversation, which made Barco turn to face him, a snarled expression deepening on the lines of his face. You're helpful. It's the best way to keep this thing moving, right? And that's what you want, isn't it, Mr. Barco? The faster you get the money, and the quicker we all move on, right? The man eventually nodded. Yes. Good. Clerk, you better hurry up and sweep the room. There isn't much inside, one suitcase, and the rest of the room is pretty much left alone, aside from the bed. I don't trust this, but I guess, I can go do this, so, excuse me? The clerk replied. Hiram shook his head at the words of the clerk as they went past into the hotel room. There was a few more moments of staring before Barco took a step forward and whispered, I think we can do something to speed things up and head down to your car, Let's get moving. No shouting back to the hotel clerk. Don't want things messy, do you? Fine by me. You are the one with the gun. You want me to lead the way? Yes, we're taking the stairs, so don't try anything funny. With Barco's finger pointed towards the end of the hallway, there was an emergency exit sign that also had the stairs, which it pointed towards, and with a grunt and a nod and the pistol also pointing towards that, Hiram wasted no time in getting moving. A few street lamps over the parking lot lit the way to the late night. They were dim and provided just enough light to see by, and Hiram had parked the car in the furthest away corner of this lot. The old beat-up sedan sat there all by itself as they approached. Barco had gotten a bit further away from Hiram, keeping him covered with the gun. Stop right there. Hiram stopped and then turned around to give a look at him. What would you like me to do? I can't get the money from the car from here. Where exactly in the vehicle is it? Barco asked. It's a suitcase in the trunk, Hiram said. It's that simple? Barco asked, looking rather surprised. Yeah, why wouldn't it be? I mean, from all of this, Barco pointed out and continued, you're just going to hand over the money, no problem? Hiram nodded slowly. Yes. You'd shoot me and kill me if I didn't. I could do that after you've pointed the way. Kill you, I mean. I don't need you after I've gotten all that money. Didn't you think of that? Oh, it crossed my mind, yes, sir. But then you'd be hunted by the organization who wants me to do this. They don't like it when people interfere with their people. They don't care so much about the money, but the people, Hiram said. Why would they care? Why pursue someone when their entire idea is just getting money out into the public again? As far as I can tell, and they want things their way, and if they aren't done their way, well, you can guess how that turns out for most people, Hiram said with a shrug. Barco growled unhappily, and then looked up towards the beat-up car several feet in front of them, then pointed towards it. Get moving again, and do it slowly this time. How slowly would you like? Hiram asked. I'll shout at you if you move too quickly or too slowly. Get to it. With raised hands, Hiram turned back to his car and made his way over to the trunk. It popped open when he pulled on the handle. It did, though, take a little bit to get open because of the rusted hinges. Once it was, though, Hiram simply stepped to the side. It's in there, Hiram said. Get it out for me. Before he complied with that order, Hiram looked over the shoulder of the thief and saw the clerk coming from the front door and running towards them. You were a bit slow. Your associate is here. You saying that is not getting my new suitcase out of your trunk, Barco growled. Making sure not to move suddenly, Hiram turned back to his car and pulled that suitcase out that his associate had given to him. Holding it up in the air, he took a step away from his car and lowered it towards the ground. Hey, why did you leave me? Shut it, clerk. I need to cover all corners, and this was the fastest way to make sure we do it. The money is in that suitcase. Go get it for me. The clerk who just arrived by the side of Barco looked at him funny, but the gun was right there. So with tepid and worried steps, the clerk went closer to that suitcase. He got to it, pulled it along the ground further away from Hiram, and towards Barco. There is nothing wrong with the suitcase. It's not trapped. It won't suddenly call the police or any agencies on you, Hiram said as the clerk got closer to Barco. Then how would your associates even know that something is wrong? Barco replied with a snicker. Well, I either call them and report the money is gone, or the story of the money giver stops going around. Well, they'll figure it out eventually from there. Still no way to attach it to us, though, Mr. Hiram, so killing you still makes sense. Wait, I don't know if I want anything to do with death. I just need money. Shut up, Mr. Clerk. No one cares about what you want. And if you keep complaining, I'll get rid of you, too. This is all so stupid with people taking way too much time and talking too much. You do have another problem if you kill me. You need to hide my body so that my associates don't find me. I don't think that will be a pleasant thing to do, but what do I know? Hiram offered. Shut up. Clerk, open the case, see what we've got, then I can decide what to do next. Barco barked at them. Looking at Barco warily, the clerk did as ordered. The suitcase comes open easily, and inside are stacks of cash. Unable to stop himself, the clerk grabs out a bundle of cash, holding it up for a second and realizing it was probably a bad idea. Then looked up to Barco and decided to try and hold it out for them. It's real, the clerk said. Good. You're testing my patience, clerk, but close that case. Bring it over to me. Finish bringing it over to me. As for you, Mr. Hiram, let this be a lesson. A lesson in what? To try and not be found out? To hide myself better? What are you implying, Mr. Barco? No, that anyone with cash will easily be found out and robbed. You think you're so smart traveling around like this? You think you could go by unnoticed? Everyone's been looking for you and your money, or haven't you noticed? Barco pointed out. I already know that people are looking for my money, or the money in that suitcase, despite all the trouble it brings with the police, Hiram replied. What do you mean, trouble with the police? The clerk asked, looking rather concerned. The clerk's interruption made Barco snarl, but he didn't say anything, though, as he did step away from this man. It was only a semi-step, since the suitcase was still in the clerk's hand. They want to stop anyone with money that they don't control. I don't know why you're doing what you're doing, but the last town had cops climbing all over the place to try and stop me and any suitcases I had, Hiram said. Shut it. Your attempt to scare the poor man into giving you the money back won't work. I'm not trying to scare him, Mr. Barco. I'm telling him what's going to happen. That's the way things are right now. Once someone finds out you have money, the law comes running for you, and potentially looking for their cut, which is exactly what you did, didn't you, Mr. Barco? Shut up. I've said this many, many times. Shut up. Your talking is not welcome. You know nothing about me, or my goals, or what people will do. I'm too smart for this sort of crap. Hiram nodded yes to this, since arguing with him didn't seem like a good idea. Neither did talking sense into him, which he'd been trying to do, but the urge to try and talk and try and get Barco to understand was a bit strong. I need the money. I can't take a chance of not having it. And you will get some, my helpful clerk. But first we must decide what to do with this one. The gun was pointedly pointed towards Hiram in a threatening way. For his part, he knew enough that right now, keeping his mouth shut would only help him out. So Hiram did that. All I care about is the money. Anything else isn't my concern. Sorry, Mr. Barco, I just don't care about you. Might I make a suggestion? Hiram said, raising his hand. No, shut up. I've told you repeatedly to shut up. Now shut up, because no one likes you. Well, I think that is a lie. People do like me when I give them money to help them survive, but after that, yeah, probably no one likes me anymore, Hiram said, lowering his hand. A sudden heavy whoop sounded as the fire alarm in the hotel went off. It took a moment to register what was going on, then a blinking light on the exterior, a white flashing light, went off from there. Once they knew what that was, Barco turned to Hiram, leveling his gun at him. You set this up. I'd like to try logic and point out how could I, but you don't seem to be in a listening mood. Also, it does appear to be a bit of smoke coming from the second story. Hiram pointed up his finger, to which only the clerk turned to look. As a result, he dropped the suitcase in horror. Oh shit, I'm gonna be in such big trouble. This is all a distraction. Grab that suitcase and come with me, clerk. We have to get out of here, Barco ordered. I can't just leave. They're gonna all suspect that I had something to do with this. My family will get in trouble with the owners, who happen to also be my relatives. It will cause them to be disowned and then, lose this place. We can't have that. With quick, sharp steps, Barco moved over to that suitcase, grabbing it up with his free hand and pointing the pistol at the other two, and then took several quick steps back. Then you will be losing out on money, and I will kill you right here and now! The gun now strayed so that it was pointed towards the clerk. A panicked expression came over him as he tried to take a few steps away. Then the sounds of sirens in the background warned of approaching fire trucks and any other emergency services. You shoot him, and you'll only be bringing more trouble to yourself, Mr. Barco. Best to run away now that you have what you wanted. You would say that. You have the money. Go and save yourself a great big headache of cops chasing you down for staying too long here. Also, if they find out you have all of that cash, they'll suspect that you're the person they've been looking for. Trust me when I say they don't care about any response that says, "It wasn't me," Hiram pointed out. Why are you even saying any of that? It will clean up a messy situation. The quicker the better, all things considered, don't you think, Mr. Barco? The sounds of siren getting closer made Mr. Barco look around further, unhappily. There was a wooded area next to the parking lot and hotel that looked quite attractive at the moment. Potentially a perfect spot to escape from, if Hiram had to guess. To aid this, Hiram kept glancing that way to see if Barco would get the suggestion that he probably should go there, and eventually the man bolted into them, disappearing, leaving Hiram and the clerk standing there. You, Mr. Clerk, should get back to the front of the hotel. The cops and the firemen will be looking for the worker who knows what's going on with this hotel. The money, though, the clerk complained, starting off where Barco had gone. I can make some calls that can get you some that will smooth this over potentially, but it might take a while, because you don't want people looking into you because you suddenly showed up with cash. Trust me, the cops, if given any chance, will look into what money you have and why. How do you know, though? Hiram nodded his head solemnly, and then said, I was once in a similar situation. A promise of cash if I went back to my job like nothing strange had happened. And the cash showed up? The clerk said excitedly. Hiram nodded his head, yes, even though this was a pretty big lie. In a complicated way, yes. It took a while, as people who offered it said I had to wait a couple of months from the police to die down. It showed up, though. And then that's how you got involved in whatever it is you're doing? The clerk inquired. The question caught Hiram off guard, because It was sort of right on the money. There was lies put in there, but he'd been pulled into this because of money, and, well, how the clerk figured out that was beyond him, but that's just the way it was. Yes, which was a choice you're going to have to make. If you choose money, you may wind up involved in a mess. It isn't pretty if you have a family. You get stuck and involved in any of this, do you? Yeah, my mom, my dad, my relatives, big family. If you want to get away from them and see much of this country, then that is an option. But you also have to run into the trouble I've had today and the other day, and no one really winds up liking you in the end if you take the money. The clerk was nodding along as Hiram said this, and gave him a pat on the shoulder as he walked past. There was nothing more to say, and he needed to figure out how to avoid the cops and the firemen who were going to be asking lots of questions to everyone around here. Running away now would only make him suspicious as the first big red trunks came into the parking lot. There was no more rest to be had, which Hiram lamented. He really could have used that extra sleep to deal with the cops and the firemen. They had interviewed him twice, and now another cop was approaching him. The hotel is a no-go for anyone, sir. If you have anything in your room you'd like us to retrieve, then we can do that. But no one is going into that hotel until they give the all clear. Thank you for telling me. The only thing in my hotel room is my wallet. If you could get that, Hiram asked. You don't have a suitcase or something up there? Well, I do, but I travel light, officer. Work keeps me moving, and I generally leave everything locked up in my car, as it feels safer. The cop eyed him up and down and then shrugged. Obviously, the cop wasn't paid well enough to care about such anomalies that Hiram was putting forward with his words. He was thankful for that, since it meant no more further questions, though the officer did look like they were about to ask at least one more. Your work, what is it? Helping those in need. It keeps me moving from town to town because that's what the bosses want. Don't ask me why. I just do what they tell me to do. Hiram offered with a grin and a shrug. Fine, but weird, but fine. We will get your stuff out of your hotel room. Is there anything else you need? This officer asked. Two things. One is more of a question about what happened, and I'm sure you tell me you can't release that information, which is fine. But the other thing is I was expecting a package to be delivered at some point today to this hotel. Is it okay if I stick around for that? Yeah, you can stick around. I think the mail came in not too long ago as well. They have 2 drop-offs at this hotel, though I've heard no idea if your package is in this delivery or in the later one. Okay, and my other question? What happened to the hotel? Room light shorted out or something like that. No one was staying in the room, though, so it's all weird to us as why it would do that. Fire caught and took up much of that room, and then the one below it, and also the one above it. Huh, that's weird. But these sort of places, they don't really get much activity since things have become so closed off. Yes, it is, indeed, sir, which is why it's odd that you're out and about traveling and helping people, the cop pointed out. Ah, yeah. Hiram cursed himself for letting his mouth get away from him, though it was his brain which had ordered those words. He shook his head, not really wanting to decipher what he was thinking about. People need help and someone has to do it, since so little is going around these days. Hiram replied nervously. Shit's above my pay grade, the cop said, to care about, so whatever. You should be careful, though. Lots of people out on the road these days, all looking for that money man. I've heard about him. Goes around giving out money to people who he doesn't know, or so those stories say. Do you happen to know what he looks like, so I can avoid him if I see him? The cop shook his head no. Every time we get a description of this dude, it changes from what it was last reported. Anyway, the mail should be over by the front door. You can check if your package is there. I gotta get back to work. Your stuff will be returned to you soon. With a polite nod goodbye, the cop wandered off back into the building. Hiram found himself glad that the conversation was done and over with. Being close to the front door, he wandered that way until he saw a couple of boxes guarded by another cop not too far from it. A quick talk with the officer, and once his ID along with his wallet and his suitcase were brought down from his room, he had his package. Hiram had wasted little time getting back onto the road despite still being tired. He hadn't seen the hotel clerk again after their conversation, so he shrugged and got going. It was probably for the best for that young man, and he'd tell his associate to send money that way once he got to the nearest rest stop. The problem was most of these rest stops had been shut down, so he had to keep on driving and driving. A sign on the overhead gantries announced that the next rest stop was 30 miles away, and it had a gas station. Hiram could only hope that that sign was up to date. His luck held out as the rest area was open and actually rather busy. Hiram parked his car, getting out to stretch and look around to see if there's a payphone somewhere nearby in the building. It was, in fact, the type of rest stop area that had a bunch of fast food places and a gift store, for some reason. Lots of bathrooms and gas. But from the outside, he couldn't see any phones to help him out. He wished his associates would have given him a phone, but apparently that had slipped their minds when the last suitcase had been delivered. The insides of the rest stop were rather busy and filled with 3 fast food places that had lines. Hiram, though, wasn't interested in food, though his stomach was grumbling for something. It was also kind of strange. He'd been told that people weren't around, and yet people were around. Maybe they were visiting from a nearby town, because there wasn't much elsewhere. His attention instead turned towards the restroom area, where there was vending machines and phones where even here was busy with a couple of people waiting to use the phone, much to his surprise. With a shake of his head, he got in line and began listening to the people. "Did you hear?" "Well, hear what, darling?" "About the money man. You heard something? What did you hear? Tell me it's good news." The man said he was having a conversation with a nearby woman. Hiram found himself glancing over towards the nearby couple that were a few steps away, near the vending machines, and the man had grabbed a hold of the woman who was shaking her by the arms. This was drawing some attention from the others around them, which made the man calm down, if only a little. "He's out and about once again. There was a man who was found with a case full of money. Says the money giver wasn't him, but someone else who had given it to him." "An entire suitcase? How much money was in it?" "I don't know. I just heard the rumors that he happened, but getting a chance of that sort of money?" the lady said. "Yeah, we'd be set for life and away from this crazy nation. Fees and tariffs galore, and the only way out is to buy your way out," the man said with a nod of his head. "Yeah, lots we could do with it," the woman replied with a long sigh of wistfulness. He stopped listening to this conversation as the line had moved quicker than Hiram had expected it to, and he soon found himself in front of one of the 2 phones available. He picked it up, dialing the number from memory, and waited, glad that the number didn't need to be paid for in advance. "Hello, this is the Wild World of Wilderness. How can I help you?" a voice on the other end of the phone said. "I need help finding a lost case that I had at the resort. I'm at the rest stop on Highway 10, the only one open on this road so far. Also, I seem to have lost my phone." There was a moment's pause and a click-clack of buttons on the keyboard that were pressed. "Understood. An associate will find and bring your things to you at once. The lost and found happens to have those items and reported it to us recently. Thank you and have a good day." "Thanks." Hanging up on the phone, he saw the new line had formed, waiting to use the phone. There hadn't been one before, but now they were there. It puzzled him why so many people were out and about when so many laws had been enacted to keep them stuck in their towns, and that they wanted to use the phone of all things. But he shrugged and stepped out of the way. Hiram went outside to wait, at first on a nearby bench, and then over by his car, and eventually sitting on the trunk of his old new car. Time went by until the sun was mostly arrived at setting, when a sleek black car pulled into the rest stop and came to a stop next to his car after a minute of driving about. A woman stepped out this time, wearing a rather casual clothes and holding a suitcase in one hand and a rather large yellow envelope in the other. "Mr. Hiram?" she asked him. "Yes, sorry about all of this. I ran into trouble and money seekers with a gun. Felt best that I give them what they wanted to survive. I hope that's okay and that's the correct choice." "You're fine. The organization recognizes these things have been difficult lately, and well, what we wanted out in the world got out into the world there, so that was your job. Here's your next case, and some helpful items," she said, offering both out to him. "A phone?" he asked as he pointed towards the yellow, big envelope. "Your phone, and a helpful item to stop pesky people from robbing you, and it's a much-needed item." He looked at the yellow enveloped package that was being held out for him to take, which he did and then popped open slightly. From the sound of it, one of those things he was getting seemed and felt like a gun. He didn't like those. Things got messy when they got involved. But the other item, he couldn't even begin to guess what it was, and he couldn't really see it, as the gun was sticky in there, and he could see a cell phone. "And this other thing you are saying there's another thing in here, right?" "We've decided to make your life a little easier and not so conspicuous. A credit card to pay for things you need, like food. I can hear your stomach grumbling, so don't protest and say anything," she said, giving him a look. "Seriously?" He frowned as he said this and looked down at his stomach, which was grumbling. "Yes, please don't go spending crazy with it, though." "It has a limit that can be spent to?" "No limit, but it will draw higher-ups' attention and ire if they see a lot of spending." "And I can't justify that spending." She merely shrugged, got back into her vehicle, which was being driven by someone else, and they drove off. Stomach grumbling, Hiram quickly got the items out of the yellow package and dug through it to make sure he found that credit card. It didn't take too long, and he soon breathed a sigh of relief. Tossing his new suitcase into the trunk once he'd opened it and slammed it shut, he remembered the gun that had spilled out onto the trunk, as well as the new cell phone, and grabbed them up and stuffed those into his pocket. It was time to go get some food. Not wasting much time, Hiram got his food and then got back onto the road to get to the next town. He wasn't really sure what anyone expected of him anymore since he'd been robbed, but they were seemingly okay with that. The road felt like it was going endlessly on and on before him. The next town another 30 miles away, and it felt like he would never get there. Too many questions kept bouncing about his mind about why this group who got him to do this was going about it the way they were doing it. It made no sense that this was what they were doing, but he had to keep doing it if he wanted to find some place to settle down and live in. Not that any of these places that he'd been recently presented any such opportunity. Not getting much sleep, but enough of one, Hiram came down from his new hotel room in the early afternoon, hoping that no new badness was going to present itself. He wanted a simple, easy job at this location, give some people some money, and then move on. However, as he was walking across the hotel lobby, there were a few cops and an old lady in quite the argument. The doorway out was blocked, so he found himself standing there waiting for an opportunity to get out of there and leave. "I'm telling you, officer, that I've done nothing wrong," an old lady yelled. "I hear you, but you can't do what you did, miss," the officer said. "Tell me, officer, what is it you think that I've done that is actually wrong? Tell me, What is it, youngster?" "You overstayed your welcome. They don't want you here anymore because you can't pay your bill, Miss Judy." "You're calling me a liar? I paid in advance." "But the hotel says that was only good for the past week. You haven't paid for more than that, so you must leave. If you don't, we will be forced to arrest you." They would claim that, so that they could take my money and not have to give me a room I paid for." "I understand that you think that you paid for it, But it isn't true. I've seen the records, the officer replied, trying to calm things down. You've seen nothing, officer. They showed you what they wanted you to see, and you took it hook, line, and sinker. You're a sucker. Hiram took a few steps closer, trying to see if he could get it past, but that wasn't the case, so he politely coughed to catch their attention. Perhaps I can help. I'll pay for her room for the night. The old lady, though, had then swung about to face him, the purse in her hand twirling about so that it smacked into his arm. It was heavy, and it hurt when it hit. You think I need someone to pay for me because I'm old? Who even are you? What do you even want from me? Sorry? Hiram managed to get out. The officer corralled the old lady a little bit to let Hiram get by. He's just a man who was offering to help you. You were blocking the way out of the hotel. Sorry, sir. The whole world is against me. You think I believe a little lie like that? All you people are against your elders. Having had enough of this, Hiram slipped out, heading for the door. He had to shake his head in disappointment. People really were becoming embittered by politics, life, and just people lately. End of part 5 of Miles to Go. Thank you for listening.